Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Overcoming Graduation podcast. Today, I finally get to say that we have reached episode 100 of the Overcoming Graduation podcast. That is 100, that is triple digits. We have done it, and I want to thank you all for being on this journey with me because the reason we got here is because of you. It is because of the response of seeing the way the show is impacted, that the messages and the interviews and stories have touched your lives. It's because of you that we're here. And I want to thank you all for being a part of this and for joining me and for sending feedback and for recommending interviewees and for being a part of this show. Because like any show and any production and anything that's put out to benefit the world, it takes on a new life by the audience that is drawn to it and that shares it. So without you guys being a part of this and telling people about it and spreading the message, we wouldn't be where we are today. So thank you. Now, I was trying to think of what would be the best way or the most special way to celebrate 100 episodes. What could I do to highlight this milestone and really make it something that we all look at and go, wow, this is a great way to enjoy this accomplishment, to celebrate together. And I thought, what better way than to tell you a bit of the story and the journey of what it took to get here, and then go back into the statistics and see what were the top 5 most downloaded podcasts of all time on this show, and who were those people. Then, as anyone who's been listening to the show knows, at the end of every interview, I ask if you could go back and give advice to your younger self, what advice would you give? And I generally pick a time, either college graduation or something that's relevant for that particular guest, and ask them to go back and give advice to that younger version of them. So I found those top 5 episodes. I pulled out their responses to that question, and I've compiled them in today's episode, and I cannot wait to share them with you. Now, what's really interesting and what you're going to see is the growth and the evolution, because we have episodes that are in the top 5 that are from the very beginning and some of the most recent published. So you're going to get to see the growth and the journey. And part of me thought, let me clean it up. I know a lot more about audio editing now. I've got better equipment. I'll be able to make these sound really crisp and really clean. And I was like, you know what? I don't want that because I want people to see the journey. And the journey looks something like this, that back in December of 2014, it was actually December 15th, 2014, was when I launched episode 1 of the Overcoming Graduation podcast. It's called Introduction. It has no intro music, no advertisements, no tagline, nothing. It was just me saying, hey guys, I'm starting a podcast and here's why. And here's what I want to do with it. And here's what inspired me to start it. Just that whole idea of we come out of school, we come into the quote-unquote real world thinking we're prepared and realize we have no idea. And I wanted to be the person that helped share the messages that I wished I'd known that can help with all the different struggles and battles in life. And at this point in my life, December of 2014, things were crazy would be an understatement. Emotionally, I can't even think of a strong enough word, not unpredictable, but the most intense emotional time of my life. Because at that point, that was just a few months after I had lost my mom to pancreatic cancer. And the emotions that came with that were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. They were so much stronger, so much more intense, and I didn't know what to do. And then I went to an event called Sean Stevenson's 10K Speeches. For the first time ever, Sean's first major live event, and I was going to meet one of my real-life heroes. And at that event, I found hope. You see, I had experienced so much pain and so much darkness and felt so numb that I was worried I may never feel happy again. Part of me thought, you had your time. You had your happiness. You're done. That's it. Enjoy it. Hope you made the best of it. I was worried that without this person, without my mom, one of the most important people in my life, without her, that life couldn't have meaning again, that I couldn't be happy, that I couldn't find fulfillment. I had all those fears. And at Sean's event, I realized how wrong I was in the best way possible. I met people who were living life unconventionally, who were pursuing their dreams, who didn't just have the normal conversations that I heard day to day at work or out in the world, that people that were looking for the brightness and looking for the joy and looking to share these messages and embrace their unique gifts and not try to hide their weirdness, but were being it and loving themselves for it. And I was like, what is this amazing place? There's a testimonial video out there from that first event still of me saying, this is the happiest I've been since my mom passed away. It brought out joy, happiness, sadness, love, everything. And I didn't know if I'd be able to feel those things again. And at that event, I met so many incredible people. And many of the early guests on this show, in fact, almost all of them came from that event. And the subsequent events I've gone to, most of my guests have come through going to that event. And at that first event, a very special person inspired me to do a podcast because I hadn't started a business yet. I hadn't started coaching. I hadn't launched an information product. I had nothing. And I was thinking about starting a blog. And I had this idea of overcoming graduation, but I didn't really know where to begin. And I had a conversation with this guy by the name of Brad Costanzo. He's a wonderful man and a marketing expert. And he just took some time with me and he said, listen, man, the world is shifting towards podcasts. That universally accessible, you can listen while you're driving. The proliferation of this content is going to be huge. It's still at the forefront. And if you get in now, it will be incredible for you. He's like, and also just your personality, you will do great with a podcast. The way you engage with people, the way you ask questions, I think that would be the best thing for you. Not a blog, that. Because for a few years, I'd run a blog called findingyoursilverlining.com. And it was just me blogging and me writing posts. And I might have done one or two guest posts from somebody else, but primarily it was that. And it was cathartic and the writing was incredible and I loved it. And I got to share a lot of really important messages with people, but the connection was missing. And Brad gave me that inspiration and that insight to do something that connected me with more people. And so, after that, the journey began. My first episode, I recorded on my iPod Touch. I just turned on the voice memo piece of it and recorded. And then my first interview, I took my cell phone out, put it on speaker, put it right next to my iPod, turned on the voice memo piece and recorded there. And I tried to keep myself close enough to what I thought would be an equal amount of volume for my speaking voice and the voice of my interviewee. You're actually going to get to hear that one on today's episode. And then it just grew from there. And I got a little USB mic and it didn't work. It didn't have enough range. So then I got an external digital recorder. And I remember at one point I invested in this software, this new beta software that was supposed to make everything easy and just upload your episode and push of a button and it does everything for you. And it ended up being a big flop. So I went back, I returned that program, and then I was like, I have to learn this. And like so many things, there's no shortcuts. Any of these things you want to do, there isn't a way to just eliminate all the challenges and dive right in. I was like, I got to do the work. I need to understand this because if anything ever breaks, everything ever goes down, I want to be able to go and diagnose the problem and fix it, not be like, hey, my app was supposed to take care of everything. And that's like anything in life. Where if we have this background expectation that everyone else is going to take care of it, we feel helpless when that person or that thing isn't doing what we expect. So in order for us to really drive the focus and drive our businesses and our ideas forward, we have to take ownership and we have to be willing to do the work and spend the time to do what most people won't do. And so I got my external digital recorder, just like a little audio recorder. I would set it on my desk, and how I controlled the audio levels was turning the speakers up and down. And I would move closer or further. And I would have more background noise. And I was like, I need to learn more about audio editing. So I started doing that, and I could clean up the sound better. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to get a good mic and a mixer. I'm going to do this right. That's what everyone does. I asked a couple of my friends. I said, I'm going to do this right. I ordered the mixer. realized I was missing some cables. I got the cables, I got the adapters, the little things that you need to plug into the different slots. I don't even really know all the names, guys. I knew, but I just I need to get this thingy. And I did that, and it didn't sound right. And there was background noise, and I was like, oh, it's too sensitive, and this is kind of scary. There's too much technology. There's too many knobs. You know what? No, I'm just going to leave it. And for years, my mixer just sat collecting dust, and I had it, and I was like, one day I'm going to do it, and one day I'm going to do it, and I just wasn't doing it. Until finally, one day I said, I kept putting it off, and it was this year, in 2018, when I was out in California. I started this back in December of 2014, and I probably bought the mixer maybe in 2015 or early 2016. And I said, let me just try. Let me give it one more shot. I feel like I can do this. And what I found in life is that the more that I approach those things that I say, I don't know if I can do this, and I try and I figure out and I give it a shot, whether or not I succeed, just the willingness to face the thing makes me go, you know what, I could try. Can't hurt. We'll see what happens. And in one 15-minute test, all of a sudden I realized what had been missing, and I was like, oh my God, I've got it. And I realized and figured out how to record interviews on a cell phone, not just through the internet, because internet connection issues have been a challenge for me since I moved out here. And the calls would be dropping, and that was always a concern. I'm like, how can I make this consistent? So each step has been, how do I improve? How do I make the quality better? How do I get better at editing? Where are my gaps that I need to improve and grow in order to be able to bring the thing I want into the world, to create what I want in the world? And that's how we've gotten here. And I said, how am I going to find guests? And I kept going to events, and I kept asking people, and I got uncomfortable. And people that I felt like they're too big, they're too important, they won't want to. I told them what I'm doing and why, and it's amazing how the message resonated, because everyone can relate with that moment, whether or not they went to school. That moment of stepping into something and not feeling ready or prepared, and trying to figure out, how am I going to do this? So as I've seen more and more, the message resonates for a reason, because there's a need for this. It's important, and there's a reason my heart is calling me to do it, to face the insecurity and the fear and to push past it. And even as I was preparing to record this, I'm like, oh, this is going to be too much work. I don't know if I have time. What if they hear the planes flying by in the background as I'm recording this? That's going to be sloppy. I had all this stuff coming up. I've recorded this intro a couple of times because I'm like, this is important to me, and I want to really convey how much I love each and every one of you for being a part of this, and how important this is for me, and how finding these things and just trying can free you from so much pain and help you share joy. That's one of the biggest things, is that I want to demonstrate to you that doing this, learning these things, taking the uncomfortable steps, doing what was difficult at times, has brought me so much joy and peace and learning and knowledge. And it's only through stepping out of our comfort zone that we'll be able to do it. And then eventually it becomes the comfort zone, and it just fills you with joy. And oftentimes we think, oh, stepping out of the comfort zone is going to be so terrible and scary. But when we do it, we feel fucking amazing. Because we're like, this is the life I want to live, of exploration, of discovery, of curiosity. I want to be approaching the world with the eyes of a child, where we wonder and we question and we try and we experiment and we open up and we have a heart that's overflowing, and we cry and we feel what we need to feel. And then 2 seconds later, we're like, you know what? I let it out and I'm good. Now I want to keep living life and go play. These are the things I share because these are the things I want to embody. I work to embody. I'm working to become. And it's because of all of you out there that I continue to push through, and I continue to connect and reach out and get uncomfortable, because you support me and you help me. You help me through the dark days. You help me through the tough times. You help me when the negative voices and the insecurity get so loud that I feel like maybe I should just quit everything and drop it all and give up on my business and stop entirely and just settle for whatever job I have, because maybe that's just how life is. And I know deep down that's not true, but you and I both know those voices can get real convincing when we're down on ourselves. And then I get a text or a message or even just a download that says someone's listening. And what my coaches have taught me, what my parents and family and friends have taught me, our greatest pain and suffering comes when we're most focused on ourselves. And there's a very selfish air about the things we're doing, and a selfish base. When we get past ourselves, and from the episode, the interview with Susan Leahy, we stay. We stop thinking it's about you. And you focus on the gifts you have to give to the world, you have a lot more fun. There's a lot more joy. And you realize the power and the impact you have with your story and your words and your unique gifts. Guys, I want you to discover them. I'm working to discover them, and I've discovered some, and I'm really happy and excited about them. I'm working to develop them and hone them and get them out to the world, but you've got them, and part of the reason I'm doing this show is because I want you to find out. I want to help you. I want to give you the stories and the messages and the interviewees and the people who maybe that one story at that one time and framed that one way by that one person is exactly what you need to hear. Maybe it comes from me. Maybe it comes from a guest. Maybe it's a story that someone else told me that I share with you. But I want you to get these messages so that you can find your joy, find your passion, find your bliss, and be a light in the world that ignites other people's hearts, ignites that passion in others, and shows them through the way you live that there is a different and better way to live life. It's not about telling people, it's about doing the work ourselves, playing the internal game, loving ourselves, loving the world, and facing the challenges with confidence and a smile, knowing we're going to hurt, we're going to have challenges, we're going to be overwhelmed, but we can do it, and we can do this together. So with that, I just want to reiterate, I love you all, and thank you for being a part of this show. Now, we're going to dive into the top 5 interviews all time for episode 100 on this show. And we're going to kick it off with a quick intro for each one. You'll hear their clip, and then we'll move on to the next one. So here we go. Our first clip comes from episode number 5 of the Overcoming Graduation podcast, which was originally launched January 14th, 2015. The guest goes by the name of John LaPointe, an entrepreneur, self-employed landscaper who designs spaces for people to create memories. And when asked the question, what advice would you give your younger self? Here is what John had to say.
Ask for more help. I made some major mistakes just because I was just foolish. It's like if I'd have just asked, somebody who's been there before, they probably would have said, it's probably not the best idea. But it was just totally blind, just like blind. Duh. You look back and you think, wow, that would have been pretty easy, So, that goes along with just being a constant learner. You just got to keep learning. There's so much incredible information out there right now, and like this podcast is an example of that. You're connecting with people and giving insights into the world where 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago it would have been a heck of a lot harder to get this type of information. So if you're that's what I'm doing myself. I'm constantly learning. These podcasts, and there's so many great people out there that were just so willing to share. I'm just I'm amazed. So go after. I would say that learning piece, and I would say, you're never going to regret going to a seminar or going and sitting down with somebody and buying them a cup of coffee and just ask them some questions, and you're never going to regret that because it's going to lead to something. It always leads to something. Everything you do, every action you take will lead to something. You just have to be okay with that, feeling of, uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Our next clip for the number 4 spot of the top 5 most downloaded podcasts of all time for the Overcoming Graduation podcast comes from episode 16 with Kara Eula, a San Francisco tech company recruiter who, in this episode and in the title, taught us how to dominate your next interview and kick fear to the curb in your life. Here is what she had to say about the advice she would give to her younger self.
I guess the main thing for me that I have really learned probably in the last year or two is don't be afraid to ask. Whether it's don't be afraid to apply, don't be afraid to ask your boss, don't be afraid to, ask anything, or maybe you meet someone on the street and you want to know, where they got their jacket. Don't be afraid to ask people questions because 9 times out of 10, they're going to want to answer it. They're going to want to be able to tell you, and if you don't know something and someone says something, ask them what it means. It's not going to be a bad thing. You're not going to look dumb. You're not supposed to know everything in the world. I think that, my first year in recruiting, especially with the new job, I didn't ask anything because I was so afraid that my boss was going to tear into me for asking a question. So I would go kind of roundabout. And I remember the first time I asked her a question, I don't even remember what the question was, but she's like, oh yeah, this is all it is. And she was super helpful. And I wasn't afraid to ask her questions anymore, and so it's a really simple thing, but for me especially, not that I have to know everything, but I'm like, I can just figure it out on my own. As opposed to taking 20 minutes to figure it out on your own, just go ask someone, it'll take 2 minutes. But yeah, just don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to stick up for yourself, I think is another really big part. I would just kind of put my head down and do the job. The minute I said I was leaving, my boss had no clue at all. And now I couldn't be happier. And if I hadn't left and I hadn't kind of put my neck out there and asked for help and said, hey, I really think I can do a job somewhere else and do a good job, I would not be nearly as happy as I was, or as I am now.
Coming in at the number 3 spot for the most downloaded podcast episodes in the history of Overcoming Graduation is episode 92 with Alice Little, the number 1 highest paid legal sex worker in the United States, and she talked to us about sex, love, and life. So let's listen in on what she had to share about the advice she would give her younger self.
The advice that I would give to younger Alice is never apologize for being you. Don't apologize for your differences, because that is what is going to make you great, and that's what's going to end up being your greatest strengths. It's okay to be different. It's okay to go about things in an unusual way, because that alternative thinking and those alternative life choices are going to take you to great spots, and you're going to be excited with where the future will lead.
Coming in at the number 2 spot for the most downloaded episodes of all time is, interestingly enough, episode number 2 with Charlie Brenneman, who went from being a high school Spanish teacher to a professional UFC fighter. Here is what he has to say about the advice he would give his younger self.
First of all, I would tell myself to loosen up. Super uptight. Loosen up and be a lot less judgmental than I was. But to myself, I would say, or to someone like me, I would say to identify your passion, set up a plan, and intelligently follow that plan. I don't believe in throwing caution to the wind and going, because there's a zillion not Mark Zuckerbergs out there, and there's only one Mark Zuckerberg. So, it's very important to have a plan. To kids of this generation, I would say stop whining and realize that you need to work hard. You don't deserve it. Nobody deserves anything. You get what you put into it. So stop complaining, stop thinking you're owed everything, and start working.
And finally, coming in at the number 1 spot, the most downloaded episode of all time on the Overcoming Graduation podcast at this point is episode number 40 with Alex Allman, a sex expert, the author of the best-selling book Revolutionary Sex, who talked with us about orgasms, size, and how to instantly have a better sex life. This is the most downloaded episode ever on the show, and here is the advice that he would have given to his younger self.
It would be that everybody is walking around feeling not good enough and unworthy, and thinks that it's like a big secret and that they're hiding it. And that if you can just let that go and have a little bit of a sense of humor around that, and realize that the only thing between you and everything you want is the self-appointment to realize that you're as entitled to it as anyone. It's just self-appointment. It's just what's the difference between being I'm not good enough, and being confident that you are? It's just a decision to be confident that you are. There's actually nothing in the space in between, except for the balls, the courage to step into that reality and say, I am.
And there you have it, the top 5 most downloaded episodes of all time on this show, and the advice that each of those interviewees would give to their younger self. what I loved about doing this was hearing, well, there were a number of things. One was just seeing what episodes really seemed to resonate with people the most. Why were they the most downloaded? What was it about the title or the content that stood out to people? And what was also fascinating was to see the similarities and then the sharp contrast in some of the advice that each of them would give. You have John talking about asking for more help, being willing to put yourself out there, being willing to say, I don't know, and that's okay, but I want to learn. We have Kara saying, don't be afraid to ask, period. So it's not just about asking for help. It's don't be afraid to ask any question. Even a person that you're curious about meeting. What's your name? Where'd you get that jacket? It's just about not having the fear to ask, because there's so many great things that we can learn in life, so many things we don't know, and the only way we're going to learn some of them is by asking. With Alice talking about never apologize for being you. That it's your uniqueness and your diversity and your abnormalities and your weirdness that makes you special and wonderful. And for you to embrace that will be one of the most freeing, liberating things for you, and one of the things that will enable you to bring the most light to the world. Then we have Charlie saying, loosen up. Be a lot less judgmental. Because being so critical and so heavy on ourselves doesn't do us any good. It just feels heavy and dark and serious, and we feel like if we're just crushing ourselves with just getting it done and we got to push through, then we can make it happen faster and we can force it. Guys, we can't force certain things in life. Trust me. If anything, I needed to hear that message from Charlie again right now. Is loosen up, chill, relax, enjoy the process. I can't suddenly make everything happen, and it wouldn't be good if I could. Getting to 100 took years. It took a lot of overcoming. It took a lot of adversity. It took a lot of dealing with and battling with my internal voices, and just saying, it's okay, man. It's okay that you didn't publish everything all at once. It's okay that you missed a couple weeks or a couple months of podcasts. It's okay. If this is something you want to do, come back. You didn't do your workout? Okay. Can you do it now? Great. If not, do one tomorrow. You didn't eat well? Okay. It happens, man. Loosen up, less judgment, free yourself from it, and move forward. And I also loved the portion that Charlie said about identify your passion, set up a plan, and intelligently follow that plan. That was so beneficial for me, especially early in my entrepreneurial career, to not hear just take the leap and go for it. Because sure, the person who's now on the mountaintop, that one exception, they can say it and it's true for them. But if we just look at that one example and we think we're just going to quit our job and instantly with no plan, no idea, and suddenly it's all going to magically come together, that may be true for some people. But there's also a group that's going to be more pragmatic, who's going to plan it out and who's going to figure it out. So when it comes to your goals and dreams, find what works for you and set a plan. You don't need to have it all figured out, but find the steps that you need, set the boundaries that you need. There's a ton more in that episode that Charlie talks about how to do that, and then take action, guys. That's the only way you're going to learn and find out what you're really capable of, is by trying, by putting the effort out, by working to take the step to make it happen. And then finally, Alex. Everyone thinks they're not worthy. Everyone thinks that there's this big veil and this secret that they're hiding and that no one else is experiencing this. And that if anyone knew how scared we really were and how fucked up we feel, that they would never accept us, and all the insecurities. And the concept of letting that go and deciding that you are confident enough and you are able. And what I thought was interesting was the contrast between Alex and Charlie, where Charlie said, you don't deserve it, go work for it. Alex said, decide that you do, and then you can start working for it. Because notice, Alex had to do the work too. So find the advice that works for you right now. Find the advice that you need. Take from this what was the most important for you, and then share it out. This is the opportunity to spread more of this love, to spread more of these empowering messages. Maybe one resonated more than another. Maybe each one had a bit for you. Tell me what that was. Share it on social media. Tag me on an Instagram post. Screenshot this on your podcast player, share it out, and be like, this was the best thing of this episode. That's how we get this out to more people. I want people to know it's okay to ask for help, that they don't need to apologize for being themselves. They don't have to be afraid to ask the questions they want to in life, that they can let go of this fear of being judged or this fear that we're the only ones with these challenges and struggles, and realize there is so much more that we share. It's to loosen up and be less judgmental and realize it's not about being entitled to something. It's about deciding I deserve to work for this and towards this for myself and for the people I love. And that you can choose to throw caution to the wind, or you can choose to set a plan. You can find what works for you in all of this. I want these messages to get out to people. I want people to benefit from this. And I want you to live your greatest life by embracing and embodying these messages in the way I work to every day. Do I always do it? No. Do I always succeed at that goal? No. But I'm getting better and better through this journey. Each step I take, I move forward. I learn more, I understand more, and I become the best version of me. I'm not perfect. I never will be. I'm always going to have challenges and struggles. There may be things I battle my entire life, and that's okay. I'm going to work on them, and I'm going to get better and better and better. And some things I'm going to come forward leaps and bounds. Some things it's going to be clawing and scraping for progress. And sometimes it's just going to be like, I'm not going to progress today in that area, and that's okay. So, everyone, thank you to each and every one of you for joining me on this journey, for continuing with me on this journey, and for helping me reach more people to help them embrace their greatest strengths, their greatest self, and to help them overcome graduation. Whether that's graduation from school, graduating to a new stage in life, a new job, a new career, a new relationship, thank you for being a part of this. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for helping me save my life, for everyone who's been involved, for all the guests, for all the people who've shared, who've commented, who've liked, who've downloaded, who've even just mentioned the podcast to someone else. Thank you. Because this is one of the greatest things in my life, and it's because of you that it continues to be, and it grows, and it has helped save me and help me share messages that are saving, empowering, and lifting up the hearts of others. So thank you again. And if you have not already, now is the time to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher. I would love to hear feedback from you. And if you want to reach out to me directly, contact me at brian@overcominggraduation.com via email. And if you're ready to start living your best life, to live in your authenticity, to speak your truth, to find out what it is you want to do in the world and why, and then create a clear plan on how to make that dream a reality today and start creating those steps and those daily habits to make it happen now, not wait, not for tomorrow, not for the day that's not on the calendar. If you're ready to take those steps and start creating your dream life, improve your relationships, improve your performance, have less stress, have more joy, and a much greater impact on the world, I want you to go to overcominggraduation.com/coaching and click the link, fill out your information, then fill out the survey, and I will contact you to set up an appointment and your free 1-hour clarity session to talk about coaching and how I can best serve you. That's overcominggraduation.com/coaching to learn more about my program and what I can do for you to help you on your journey in those ways. And if you have any questions about the coaching program, about the podcast, if you're just curious about what it takes to start one, reach out to me at brian@overcominggraduation.com and I'll do whatever I can to help. Thank you all for joining me on episode 100. Thank you all for joining me on this journey. I love you all. And as I always say, I'll be talking to you again real soon.